I knew he'd see it the moment I hit post. The photo wasn't scandalous, just me in a blue bikini, laughing, the ocean behind me, and my best friend Ryan's arm casually around my shoulder. But to Ethan, that picture was a declaration of war. He had warned me a week before the trip. His exact words: "If you go with him, don't expect me to be here when you get back." At the time, I thought he was bluffing. People in love don't issue ultimatums over harmless friendships, right? I'd been dating Ethan for almost 2 years. He was reliable, kind, protective, maybe too protective. What started as affection slowly became surveillance. Constant check-ins, questions about where I was, who I was with, what I was wearing. At first, I thought it was care. Then it started to feel like control disguised as love. When my college friends planned a reunion in Miami, I was thrilled. We hadn't seen each other in years, and Ryan, my childhood best friend, was part of that group. Ethan wasn't happy. He never said it outright, but I could see it, the tension in his jaw whenever I mentioned Ryan. The night before I left, Ethan came over. His tone was cold, rehearsed, like he'd been waiting for this. "I'm telling you now, Emily. If you go with him, we're done." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe he'd trapped me like that. "Ethan, it's a group trip. There are 10 of us. You're being ridiculous." "Then don't go. Choose what matters to you." He left without saying goodbye. I watched the outline of his car disappear down the street. My hands shook, not from guilt, but from anger. Since when did love become a leash? I went anyway. The first day in Miami felt like finally surfacing after months underwater. The sun was warm. The air tasted like freedom. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't editing myself to keep someone else calm. Ryan and I laughed like we used to, easy, loyal, uncomplicated. We'd known each other since we were kids, long before Ethan ever existed in my life. That afternoon, someone suggested photos on the beach. Ryan stood beside me, arm over my shoulder, both of us smiling at the camera. It wasn't planned. It wasn't intimate. It was just a moment. Later, when I saw the photo, I hesitated. I could already picture Ethan's reaction. Accusations, arguments, cold silence. My thumb hovered over the post button. Then I thought, if I have to hide a harmless photo to keep peace, what kind of peace is that? So, I posted it. The likes started pouring in. Old friends commented, "You look amazing," or "So good to see you happy." I smiled, but I knew a storm was brewing in Ethan's head. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. 5 missed calls, 3 texts. "Ethan, you really did it. Enjoy your trip. We're done. Hope it was worth it." My heart sank. Even when you expect an explosion, it still shakes you when it hits. Ryan noticed. "Let me guess, Ethan?" he asked gently. I nodded. "You knew this might happen?" I nodded again, forcing a smile. Inside, I wasn't sure if I felt regret or relief. Maybe both. That night, while everyone went out, I stayed on the balcony, staring at the sea. I thought about all the compromises I'd made, changing outfits, skipping nights out, deleting messages from Ryan, small ways of shrinking myself to avoid conflict. It wasn't about a trip anymore. It was about freedom, identity, and finally refusing to make myself smaller to fit someone else's comfort zone. Maybe that photo wasn't rebellion. It was a declaration. I was done apologizing for existing. Back home, the apartment felt colder. Ethan had mailed my keys with a folded note. "You made your choice." No explanation, no goodbye, just a verdict. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I felt broken or free. Freedom doesn't always arrive with fireworks. It often walks in quietly after the shouting stops. The first few days were a blur. Part of me wanted to call and explain it wasn't about Ryan, it was about breathing. Another part whispered, "Don't chase someone who only loves you when you obey." My friends assured me I'd done the right thing, that no one should live under a microscope. Yet even the right choice can ache. I'd grown used to Ethan's presence, his routines, and his absence felt like silence after a long song. One evening, Ryan showed up with takeout, eyes knowing I'd been crying. "You don't have to explain yourself," he said. "You just wanted to live your life." I shrugged. "Then why does it feel like I blew mine up?" "Because he convinced you that happiness was conditional. You just broke the condition. His words sank deep. That night, I scrolled through old messages with Ethan. The early ones were warm, midnight jokes, spontaneous plans, pictures of us laughing. Over time, they changed. More questions, more tension, fewer smiles. It wasn't one fight that ended us. It was a slow erosion of trust disguised as love. Every boundary I drew, he saw as rebellion. Every independent choice, disrespect. The trip wasn't the start. It was the final test I hadn't agreed to take. Weeks passed. Neither of us reached out. Social media, however, has a way of haunting. One night, I saw he posted a story, laughing at a bar with a woman I didn't know. My stomach twisted, then eased. For the first time, I felt no jealousy, only closure. Love shouldn't feel like walking through a minefield, afraid to set off an explosion. It should feel safe, like space to be yourself. Part of me wondered what he told people about us. That I chose another man? That I couldn't handle commitment? The truth was simpler. I chose myself, and he couldn't handle that. A month later, I went back to the beach alone. I stood where that photo had been taken, watching the tide crawl over the sand. The air was warm, the same as before, but I was different. I wasn't waiting for approval anymore. I remembered his words before the trip. Choose what matters to you. I had. I looked at the bikini photo again. Thousands of likes. I didn't care. My smile in that picture was real, unfiltered, uncalculated. It wasn't defiance he saw, it was independence. And independence scared him more than infidelity ever could. People talk about ultimatums like clear lines. You cross them, you lose something. What I lost was only the illusion of love. What I gained was the real thing inside myself. Months later, when friends asked about Ethan, I didn't roll my eyes or curse him. I said, we wanted different versions of freedom. True. He wanted obedience. I wanted breathing. Mine was louder than his rules, brighter than his silence, and finally mine alone.